AI isn't just a side project or prototype anymore. It is driving competitive advantage. AI agents are key to making sure your projects deliver and aren't just a diversion. You've probably already experimented with tools like ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity in your day-to-day work. Maybe you've thought, can we build something like this for ourselves? Can we build our own AI agent? The answer is yes. On the one hand, it's simpler than you might think. On the other, a recent report from MIT shows that just 5% of custom enterprise AI projects ever reach production. If we look closer, we begin to understand where companies struggle. While there is a lot of interest in investigating AI, companies are facing roadblocks when it comes to piloting and implementing custom AI projects. My name is Ingo Schellhammer, Chief Technology Officer at Statista. And today I want to show you not just how you can build an AI agent for your company, but how to cross the divide to become one of the 5% that thrives. Before we go further, let's be crystal clear on what we mean by an AI agent. This is not a chatbot with a clever prompt. An AI agent remembers. It stores context, learns from interactions, and understands intent, not just in the moment, but across time. A true AI agent has a memory layer to hold facts, policies, and key decisions. A customer service agent, for example, should be able to recall a client's last support tickets, so that the customer doesn't need to report the details of their case with each and every new contact with your company. It is also capable of acting autonomously. That means it can carry out multiple step tasks, manage handoffs, make decisions based on context, and escalate when needed, without constant human prompting. A finance agent that processes invoices should be able to perform tasks like matching it against a purchase order, assigning a cost center, and flagging discrepancies without needing human intervention at every stage. Most critically, it must integrate with the operational systems or other trusted data sources. For companies working with Statista, plugging into our market insights, consumer insights, and the Statista API are easy ways to create a true AI agent. Without integration into real systems of record, an AI agent is disconnected from real value. Integrating trusted information sources deepens the context, so the agent can answer accurately. For example, you might build a retrieval augmented generation module, a RAG module, pulling structured data from Statista's market and consumer insights via our API, alongside with your own knowledge base. These connectors provide read-only access, so the agent can cite facts and deliver current market analysis without guessing. Connecting to your operational systems lets the agent connect with your tools, your CRM to log a lead, or send a templated email, for example, or your ticketing system to assign a task. These integrations require secure, authenticated write access and should include human-in-the-loop controls. Take a sales email, for example, that your agent can draft using the proprietary data you hold in your CRM and up-to-date market data from Statista, and provide that to your sales team for approval before sending. If the tool you're building doesn't learn, remember, and act, and can't connect to your operational stack, then there is not an agent. It's a user interface wrapped around a model. In order to build your own AI agent, you need to have a clear idea of what you are trying to achieve. At this stage, you need to focus on the task, not the tech, to ensure you don't become one of the 95%. AI agents thrive in areas where the work is structured, repetitive, and high volume. These aren't edge cases. We all experience these cases on a close to a daily basis. These are the painful experience workflows your teams touch every day. Sounds easy in theory, but what do these cases look like in practice? Now, in finance, AI agents are already being used to automate accounts payable processes, perform three-way invoice matching, draft financial narratives that previously required hours of analyst time. Human resources departments are using them to generate job descriptions that match internal tone and legal standards, automate onboarding flows with personalized learning journeys, and answer employee questions about topics like leave entitlements, benefits, or processes in real time. In operations, AI agents help to manage order-to-cash processes, automate scheduling for service teams or logistic flows, and flag anomalies in inventory levels before they become supply chain problems. Legal and compliance groups are seeing value by using AI agents to generate contracts from clause libraries, map regulatory requirements, and answer governance questions in real time, even across jurisdictions. In our case, clients needed not just raw data points, but custom insights written in our editorial tone, with clear sourcing and logic. We needed a way to go beyond the search bar, matching terms with our database, and Research AI was the answer. We set out to build something tailored to our users. Our agent understands our taxonomy. It can search across our database of data on over 80,000 topics from more than 22,500 sources and synthesize a response using our voice and our standards. It remembers policy, it integrates with our editorial workflow, and it improves based on feedback. As an agent, Research AI helps our users to do their research in a matter of seconds, with more comprehensive coverage of all data sources and already curated in a ready-to-use style. To show you a simplified visualization of this, Research AI takes the input from a user, the question, and goes through an initial phase to weed out bots exceeding the rate limit. It determines which language the request is in and makes sure the request is legal and appropriate, things of that nature. The planning tool will lay the foundation of the answer, and in many ways, much of the magic happens here. There's a toolbox available to the planner, things like a calculator, if a user asks for information requiring combining or multiplying figures, a currency converter, if they want the amount in euros instead of dollars, and population sizes, if they want to know something on a per capita basis. The answer tool will form the bulk of the actual response, connected to the very same assets we offer our clients, our human-curated data, market insights platform, our consumer insights data, and our flexible API. And then there is some post-processing to do with how the answer is presented to match the style and standard that our customers are used to. Powering this, we use LLMs including GPT-4.nano, Claude Sonnet 3.5, and Cohere Rerank 3.5. Cohere is actually excellent at analyzing what the planner originally retrieves and bringing the most useful results right to the top. If I play this short demonstration now, you can see these elements at work. The inquiry goes in, the agent makes sure it passes all the checks. The planner begins to search and re-rank Statista data. The agent will then begin to generate and process the answer. If needed, I can then further refine my initial query, and the agent will respond accordingly. We defined very clear targets for things like response time, cost, and answer quality at the very beginning. And those metrics were actually instrumental in guiding our work towards something that actually was production ready, allowing us to become one of the 5% for whom our agent is thriving. To succeed with your agent, it is important to understand why is there such a gap between investment and outcome across the corporate landscape. And it's not about the models. The research is clear. The technology is not the constraint. The failures happen because of misaligned incentives, lack of ownership, poor integration, and weak measurement. These factors can lead to a project's demise and can be put down to some common traps and pitfalls. Some of these have been outlined not just in the publication like the MIT report I have mentioned, but the likes of Gartner, McKinsey, and others have also identified similar pitfalls. These issues aren't just theoretical, they manifest in predictable and highly visible ways. And today I'd like to take a closer look at 5 of them and propose some solutions. To close the learning gap, you must treat AI agents like products, not prompts. It can be tempting to begin with a well-crafted prompt and assume that's sufficient, but a prompt is not a product. It doesn't persist memory. It doesn't support escalation. It doesn't evolve. And solving that starts with memory. Your agent should be able to store and retrieve facts, policies, and historical context. It should recognize recurring users and tailor its responses accordingly. It should be able to retain domain-specific knowledge and editorial style guides, as we've done at Statista. You should ensure a pathway from your AI agent to a human to monitor and evaluate the learning process. As well as hands-on testing, logs should be reviewed, errors should be triaged, and improvements should be scheduled, not sporadic. The second issue is misplaced spending. According to MIT's data, most generative AI spending today leans toward front office experiments, like chatbots, pitch decks, personalized emails. These are easy to prototype. They demo well and they get attention. But the biggest return on investment consistently come from back office workflows, like invoice processing, internal documentation, can be claims handling, procurement approvals. These areas are high volume, high structured, and measurable. When rethinking AI budgets, start by rebalancing towards the back office. By overextending on front office flair, you risk missing the core value of AI agent, scalable, repeatable process automation. These are the areas where cost per transaction is high and automation creates instant value. So if you need a first move, pick 2 workflows where volume is really high, data is clean, and there's a metric the CFO really cares about. And then run those for a set period, like 90 days, and measure everything. Another key finding from MIT's research is that enterprises that build in-house succeed far less than those that buy or co-develop the solution. And this is not to say that the build-first reflex is to be totally avoided, but there are pitfalls you can avoid by taking the right steps. In-house builds can lack the productation mindset, domain expertise, and long-term resourcing needed to support and scale a real tool. When designing and outlining your project, be pragmatic and realistic with the resources you need, and identify any of the common hurdles, such as compliance issues, ahead of time. Think like you are your own product company, designing this agent for truly strategic capabilities. Cases where you're creating differentiated value, and you have the team to support full lifecycle development. Include UI UX sprints and end-user testing, and make sure to provide support structures and to have the team for full lifecycle development. Along this process, you will need to avoid measurement fog. Your measurement model must not be just CTO grade, but CFO grade, with metrics that really matter. So how do you do this? Well, start with the baselines. What's the current cost? What's the error rate and time per task? What's the rate of forced contact resolutions? You could even run control groups, teams that don't use the agent, to isolate the impact. If it works in your company, consult with finance from the start. Agree with how savings will be counted. Will reduced outsourcing spend be attributed to the agent? Will fewer hours spent on a process count as an operational efficiency? If finance can't sign off on the business case, your agent won't scale. What are the metrics that matter? Well, every company is different, of course. But for some inspiration, start with cycle time, the total time it takes to complete a task from start to finish. You can also track manual touches, how many times a human needs to intervene, or monitor the rework rate, how often tasks have to be redone due to errors. In customer service, measure deflection rate, the number of queries resolved without needing human support. If you can measure FCR, first contact resolution, you might be able to track how often an issue was resolved on the first contact. And if you can, calculate unit cost, the cost per transaction or task. Accurate measurements in these areas will help identify your agent's impact and get your CFO excited. So how can this be put into action? Take this plan as an example that you scale up or down as necessary for your size, your industry, and your company's level of AI maturity, based on the lessons learned from the core problems. Set the agenda from day one, with top management making AI automation a real company priority. Ensure that everybody understands how relevant AI will be for midterm success. Then establish roles and tools early in the first month. Identify or hire people who have the passion and the capabilities for AI automation in each of your core business functions. As an example, there are 5 roles that will help your projects go smoothly. You need a product owner embedded in the business unit. This person defines the problem, it prioritizes features, and it acts as the voice of the end user. Of course, you need a data engineer who does the actual AI automation, a text-heavy expert who can handle integrations, bringing together internal databases, APIs like Statistas, and RAG pipelines. And you will need a process subject matter expert, SME, someone who understands the nuances, exceptions, and edge cases of the workflow you're automating. Often a product owner will find an enthusiastic data engineer and process SME together, and they will do the lion's share of the development and testing. Alternatively, these projects start with a proactive data engineer with a keen interest in AI, tightly embedded in a function, who prototypes automation. And once a product owner notices the potential and adds a project SME, the trio can finalize the agent and drive it into production. Particularly, if you are in a sensitive or highly regulated industry, you might consider a safety lead, someone who owns compliance, data privacy, and ethical guardrails, and helps ensure your project won't land you in trouble. I would also suggest finding a finance partner to help define the baseline, track cost savings, and validate benefits. This role can also be assumed by a top-level executive that really pushes himself for measurable bottom-line impact. In terms of structure, finance partner and safety leads are mostly central roles that are less actively involved in agent development. They assume governance roles and support on demand. You should assign governance roles and defining guardrails in line with your company's needs. Connect your AI experts and promoters as peers, and select the first AI toolset that can be used by those experts and by all other employees. And now, it's time to inspire, try, and learn. During months 2 and 3, let teams experiment with what is possible with AI. Make sure they use the AI toolset and gain experiences. If the use case involves sensitive data, begin with redacted or synthetic data sets to protect compliance and mitigate risks. Invite more external AI experts to your company to showcase what is possible. You may organize AI hackathons to ignite broad participation. Don't focus on impact yet, but passion and learning. You should now be in a position to select and empower your champion. After about a quarter, you should be able to identify leads and experts that are especially active and AI savvy. Find those and empower them to lead your company to first convincing success cases. Make them your AI champions and provide them the context and the funding they need for their AI automation use cases. Collect every piece of feedback, review usage logs, and improve the agent in weekly sprints. Agree a time to scale with your champions. Ask for regular progress reporting, but still allow for setbacks. At this process, you are now ready to take a go or no-go decision. Sit down with your champion for a fact-based review of the impact you've achieved. Compare your measurements to the baselines you've established at the start of the process. Finally, let's have a look at the underlying tools you will need. I said previously, it is important to focus on the task and not the tech. But I want to give you an overview of the types of tech you can use to achieve your aims. Now, just to be clear, I'm not recommending one over the other here, or telling you which is the most appropriate for your use case, but giving you a few threads you can pull out to find out what works for you. Take LangChain, for instance. It's the Swiss Army knife of agent building. It's powerful and highly flexible. You can chain prompts, you can connect tools and memory, define reasoning steps. It gives you a lot of control, but it also requires developer time to set up properly. Then there's LangGraph, which builds on LangChain but adds a visual graph-based workflow. And that's particularly useful in corporate environments where you want transparency. Every step is visible, auditable, and can include a human in the loop. AutoGen from Microsoft is another evolution. It specializes in orchestrating multiple agents that talk to each other. Think of it as building a team of digital colleagues. Crew AI also follows this idea, explicitly structuring agents as a team with defined roles and goals. That's powerful for workflows like market analysis, where you might want one agent focused on consumer data, another on competitor positioning, and a third synthesizing strategy recommendations. On the enterprise integration side, Microsoft Semantic Kernel deserves a mention. It allows you to embed agent-like logic into applications your teams are already using. That can make adoption easier because instead of asking users to learn a new platform, the agent lives inside the tools they already know. And then there are low-code and visual builders. Tools like Flowise, BotPress, or N8N allow you to drag and drop components together without writing much code. They are excellent for prototyping or for business teams who want to test an idea quickly. Finally, there are LLM-independent AI platforms like LangDoc that give you a lot of flexibility to host various AI agents in one ecosystem. LangDoc focuses on secure enterprise deployments, making it easier to connect large language models directly to corporate data sources. Now, here's the crucial part. All of these tools are only as good as what you feed them. This is where Statista's API becomes a game changer. When you're using LangChain, LangDoc, or a low-code builder, the integration points are straightforward. You can give your agent access not just to your internal CRM or ERP, but also to more than 3 million consumer attributes, data across 500 industries and 15,000 brands. By pulling from verified sources, you're ensuring your agent isn't making decisions on shaky ground. Think of it this way. LangChain might define the workflow, LangDoc might secure the deployment, and Flowise might help you prototype. But without a reliable data set, your agent won't win the trust of your subject matter experts. Once you plug in Statista's market and consumer insights, you're giving your agent context, accuracy, and global scope. Suddenly, instead of generic answers, you get insights that both SMEs and executives can trust. So when you're thinking about tools, don't ask which one is the best. Ask instead, which one fits my organization needs well enough? And how will it connect to the trusted data that my teams really depend on? That alignment between the purpose of your agent and the required data is what separates the 95% of failed pilots from the 5% of projects that thrive. Thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you attending this webinar live, we will be opening the floor to questions shortly, so don't go anywhere. If you are watching the recorded version of this webinar via our platform or social media, thank you very much for watching. For more expert-led insights across industries, make sure you sign up for future webinars so that you can have access to the data discussed in this webinar and to be part of the live Q&A sessions. And if you are watching live, we actually have a limited number of API keys to give away. Just fill out the small survey at the end and we will get back to you. And now, on to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Ingo. My name is Alexandra. I'm from the Statista marketing team, and I'm happy to host today's Q&A. I'm not wasting any time. I jump right into the very first question we received from the audience. Ingo, how will this agentic AI how-to help future-proof participants in the light of such fast-paced tech change?
My point is that it is important to get going. This is a super evolving, super dynamic situation with new tools emerging every other day. So don't worry too long about which tools you use. Try various tools. The real task you have to solve is to pick the right use case in your company where the real value is. And then there's a lot of tools who will do the job, but you need to be on top of choosing the right use case that really provides value for you.
Fair point. Another question specifically about quality. Which factors influence the perceived quality of interaction with AI agent? Like, not the quality of service, but actively the quality of interactions.
I guess this has a UI dimension and a data dimension. And the UI dimension is pretty much their standards set by leading tools like ChatGPT. They more or less define how users expect an AI agent to behave. And I would recommend not to deviate too much from these user-learned behaviors. The second is the data. And hallucination is a widely discussed problem in using multiple AI agents. And you can only overcome this hallucination issue if you, on the one hand, connect to really trusted data, but also do thorough Q&A. So you should, before deploying an agent, really make sure that you know what to expect in terms of difficult edge cases and see whether the agent behaves appropriately. And this has to be measured, like you go live with a new product. There you also do a lot of testing before you go into production mode.
Fair point, absolutely. Starting basically at the point where AI agents are built, what's the best way to use agents to sift through data and create narratives and actionable insights for clients, for example?
That very much depends on the data you have. And I would distinguish between unstructured and structured data because you would handle them very differently. If you have unstructured data like large documents, PDFs, and so on, might be your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your Confluence space, whatever kind of unstructured data, then you typically do some semantic modeling like vector embeddings that tell the system what kind of information can be found where. And based on the query, the agent will identify fitting content. If you have very highly structured data, like in your finance system, but also, for instance, the consumer insights we have or the market insights, then you would not be able to identify semantically what the right data points are. But then you need techniques like text to SQL, where you understand the intent of the user and translate it almost into an SQL statement that pulls exactly the right data you need to answer the question at hand.
Talking about expected data again, can AI agents be entrusted with very sensitive information? I also had questions here about, for example, the field of clinical research, where I feel like it's a lot of medical data in there, which is really sensitive, of course. What to do to save your or to protect your data?
That's a difficult question. And I don't know whether there's an absolute answer to that. I can only say it's basically a judgment call by the management team. If you are a company that says, I will win by just being faster, by automating faster, better than others, being more efficient and having more valuable workflows, you will probably be able to or willing to make some compromises when it comes to protecting your data. Whereas there are companies in healthcare and others that work with highly trusted data from their customers and patients and so on, where they would not ever consider to exposing them to any risk. Now, if you're in such a situation where you don't want to expose any risk, using public LLM models might be dangerous because there's always a residual risk. You can trust the terms and conditions of those providers, but it's a matter of trusting, right? It's difficult to go into a legal battle with large providers. So you can host your LLMs on your own premises, right? Then you are completely safe. But that also comes with disadvantages because if you want to host your large language models on premise in your own systems, well fenced from the internet, then you will have a lower adoption of new features, for instance, right? So there's a price to pay, and you have to balance. Do you want to be like at the forefront of innovation when it comes to LLMs, or do you want to be on the safe side with not making sure that none of your data is really leaking?
You very already answered the next question I wanted you to ask, which is against especially that. In your opinion, in order to implement AI solutions, should we create an on-site data server or can we opt for a cloud-based solution, which is probably security as a first risk, but maybe you also have other pro and cons for both solutions?
I guess cloud is already quite a cloud-based setup where you run your large language models in a well-fenced own cloud area, like a private cloud, is already a highly secure option to go. But it, again, already comes with first shortcomings when it comes to innovation speed. For instance, Cohere, you can also run in a protected own VPC on AWS if you want, but you can also use the public version. And innovation is always out first in the public version, right? So there's always this time gap. But using cloud-based owned VPCs where you run your LLMs is already quite a safe option to start with.
Another question about the processes in this case. One person says that processes rarely exist in isolation. Managing them one by one without understanding the broader network can create blind spots and so on. Should we instead start small, like examining each process individually and accept the complexity that comes with it? Or is it better to begin with system-level views that maps how everything links together?
I would recommend to start small here. The big picture is even more complex and even harder to test. It comes with more exceptions to account for when doing your Q&A. So the smaller the use case is you start with, the better you gain traction, you gain experiences, you can improve your methodology, how to do Q&A and so on. Also, the risk involved is not as high as you do it on a company level across various processes. So I guess starting small, being fast out there, gaining experiences on production level would be my advice.
we had people asking, where do I best start as a solo entrepreneur or as a very small company? Do you have any recommendations on how to get started?
Well, if you're a one-person company, right, then you are all over the place, right? You do all the processes, right? You start in the morning with the finance, then you do the marketing, you do the selling and everything. So basically, you need a very generic support, right? And these out-of-the-box tools that you have do cover a lot of use cases. My best advice in that case is you need to find out where your sweet spot is, where you don't need support, and what is really annoying you, what costs you your energy, your time, right? I'm certain that some people really don't like the invoicing part or whatever, right? And AI agents can really help you there, right? You don't need to hire someone. There is a reasonable chance that you can get these tasks automated with modern AI tools. Now, if you're alone, you need to find a way how to learn doing that. And here the best is really to be active in learning. For your podcast, look webinars like this, also connect with other peers, attend conferences, and the learning curve will be very steep, and it's just about getting started.
Very good point. We got another very nice question. Statista has a broad customer base. What roles or departments do you see benefiting the most from implementing AI agents, and why?
We see very different departments using Statista data. And there's different use cases our customers use our data for. One very prominent use case is market analysis, obviously, right? Using our market insights data or consumer insights data to really double down on consumer expectations, understanding your target group, understanding the competitive landscape. That's a typical marketing use case. The same or similar use case you have in sales, right? If you have outbound sales and want to understand which companies are most eligible for my offering, nailing down your sales approach, you can use the company data we provide, but also market insights data to target your activities more effectively. But also in corporate development, if you look at the competitive landscape, do scenario modeling, you can use these data very easily, and they prove very helpful because you just get another level of security when it comes to the trustworthiness of those data.
Talking about trustworthiness, you gave me a very, very good follow-up. How do we 100% guarantee that the agents we create won't share uploaded information to its LLM?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. Isn't it?
And I fear that I cannot give a fully satisfactory answer because working with these AI agents, working with LLMs, always comes with a residual risk of data leakage. If you want to have 100% control about where your data goes, you'll probably have to work with on-premise solutions only, where you have physical evidence that the data is not leaving. I guess that is a very strict point or perspective on that matter. But there may be industries that put their customers' data privacy really at front because it's highly sensitive, and they do so for good reason. And then that might be the way of choice. If you already work in private clouds, for instance, you already have quite a high guarantee of keeping your data safe, but it gives you much more flexibility. It's much easier to deploy, and that's the way to go. But then there are also companies that say, well, we will win or lose by being the fastest on the market, right? And then one has to understand that using public models often allows the fastest time to market. They implement features, the new features that are coming every day, the earliest, and that allows you to be really at the forefront of AI automation.
Thanks for your answer. I have one more question, which is really detailed, but I feel like it's a fun question, or it gives us a lot of to build on. Can I interactively combine data from Statista with data collected by our hardware wireless devices, e.g. sensors?
Interactively combining data sources is not what we see right now, because connecting databases, especially your proprietary ones, still comes with some setup efforts, which is not prohibitive. It very much depends on the source system. Some of these source systems have open access methods. With others, you have to self-engineer MCP service in front of that system or a REST API or something that the agent can actually talk to. So if you want to combine those, it typically comes with engineering effort in the very beginning. knowing what do I want to do with the source system. Do I only want to read data, or do I also want to initiate actions, for instance? And that very much depends on how much effort you have to put into connecting that database. With Statista, as we have a product offering, it's a bit easier. You need an API key, yes. That's a thorough documentation on how to access the API endpoints. So for a typical engineer, that shouldn't be a big issue. There, the issue is more about how do I want to use the data, right, in my decision workflow? Where does it really help, and where do I don't need it? But from an engineering point of view, it's rather easy to integrate.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. Thanks to everyone who participated today. Thank you very much, Ingo, for being our speaker. Don't forget to fill out the survey, which is going to pop up at the end to get one of our limited API keys. I hope to see you all in our next webinar soon. Thank you and goodbye.